and incoherent after she said some of the most powerful people in the world are not as smart as they seem. Dinesh D'Souza has once again taken aim at the Obamas, claiming that Michelle Obama's college thesis at Princeton University was illiterate and incoherent. The far-right filmmaker hit out at the former First Lady after she stopped in London as part of a book tour for her memoir becoming now the best-selling book of 2018. Michelle was in discussion with Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie when she claimed that some of the most powerful people in the world are not as smart as they seem. "I have been at probably every powerful table that you can think of," she said. "I have worked at non-profits, I have been at foundations, I have worked in corporations, served on corporate boards, I have been at G-summits, I have sat in at the UN. They are not that smart." The comment came as Michelle, who was speaking to a sold-out crowd of 2,000 people, admitted she still had a little bit of imposter syndrome. "It never goes away that you're actually listening to me," she said. "It never goes away, that feeling that you shouldn't take me that seriously. What do I know? I share that with you because we all have doubts in our abilities, about our power, and what power is." But D'Souza, who was recently pardoned by Donald Trump for a felony conviction of making illegal campaign contributions in 2012, ignored that part of Michelle's chat as he specifically took aim at her comment about leaders being not that smart. Anyone who has read Michelle's college thesis, a document so illiterate and incoherent that it was written, as Christopher Hitchens put it, in no known language, will chuckle heartily at this one, he wrote in a Facebook post. Michelle's college thesis made headlines amid Obama's 2008 presidential campaign, when Princeton University restricted access to it until after the election. A number of conservative bloggers wrote about the restriction, fueling controversy, until the Obama campaign itself sent Politico the thesis in full. Princeton University then followed suit and lifted any restrictions to the thesis. Hitchens, who was a frequent critic of Obama's presidency before he died in 2011, was quick to tear into the thesis, which was titled "Princeton Educated Blacks and the Black Community." He mocked Michelle for what he said was a narrow choice of subject because she was a black woman at Princeton. "I mean, you can't really claim you're being educated if the subject of your thesis is what it's like being me at this college," Hitchens, who also touched on the thesis in a Slate article, told conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt in May 2008. "So that, I find partly laughable, and I'd have to add slightly sinister." Hitchens then went on to say that Michelle's thesis was hateful, lugubrious, boring, resentment-filled screed written in some very bad form of sociologies. "The only thing you can definitely tell from the attempt to read it, because I maintain it cannot actually be read, it's a degradation of the act of reading, is that she favors, or views with favor, black separatism, or as she calls it, separationism." Hitchens' claim later came under fire from acclaimed author Ta-Nehisi Coates. "Hitchens is just lying," Coates wrote in a rebuttal for The Atlantic a few days later. He claims that Michelle announces that she's much influenced by the definition of black separationism offered by political activist Stokely Carmichael. In fact, what the relevant passage says is that Carmichael guided her in forming a definition for her thesis. She says absolutely nothing about how it influenced her personal views. While Michelle did touch on her own personal experiences as a black woman at Princeton, she also interviewed 89 black graduates at the school to research whether they had become more or less motivated to benefit the black community after their time at the Ivy League. Michelle, who graduated cum laude from the university with a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology, found from her survey that the answer was less motivated and then reflected on whether that was true for herself as well. "As I enter my final year at Princeton, I find myself striving for many of the same goals as my white classmates: acceptance to a prestigious graduate school or a high-paying position in a successful corporation," she wrote. Michelle, who once revealed the mother of a white roommate had repeatedly tried to get her daughter reassigned to a different dorm because of her race, also wrote that even after 3 years on campus, she sometimes still felt like a visitor. "My experiences at Princeton have made me far more aware of my blackness than ever before," she wrote. "I have found that at Princeton, no matter how liberal and open-minded some of my white professors and classmates try to be toward me, I sometimes feel like a visitor on campus, as if I really don't belong." Michelle would later touch on Hitchens' comments in Becoming, calling his criticism small-minded and ludicrous. "He tore into the college-age me, suggesting that I'd been unduly influenced by black radical thinkers and furthermore was a crappy," she wrote. Michelle said she felt Hitchens had mocked her intellect, trying to make her seem so foreign that even my language couldn't be recognized.